All right. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on when you are watching this lecture. Hope this video finds you well and you are having a good week. Speaking of weeks, we're already at week 10. We are moving pretty quick through this class. May have noticed that I've posted the extra credit assignment, optional, midterm, to earn some extra points. And there's a lot more opportunities for you all to do well in this class. Just make sure that you continue to participate in the discussions. Make sure that you're reaching out to me too if you have any questions. I know that this is a difficult semester. This is a difficult year for a lot of us. Very stressful. This has been a year that's unprecedented. I mean, we are in the middle of a pandemic, and there is so many difficult situations that a lot of us are in right now. So I want you to know that you have a professor in this class who cares about you and who understands, and I am here to help and support you. So all you got to do is reach out to me, and I won't know unless you do communicate. And that was something we learned about in this class, right? Was the importance of communication with your professors. They won't know, and I won't know unless you talk to me. And you know that there's office hours each week. There is email you can always contact me through. So just know you have a lot of support here, and not even just with me, but with your other classes and tutoring. There's a lot to help. So don't be afraid to reach out and ask questions when you have them. So let's jump into week 10. So week 10, the topic of this week is cultural diversity and inclusion. And a lot of us have heard that term before, right? Diversity. But I don't know if any of you really had the chance to really look into it and understand, okay, what is diversity? What does that mean? For us here, going to a school like Chaffey College, living in California, living in the United States, we live in a culturally diverse country, and you go to a college that is extremely diverse, which is just fantastic. We live in a society that's filled with a variety of literature and culture, history, food, music, and events, and experiences that make us all who we are. Right. And there's so much, there's so much diversity, and there's so much differences with each of us, and with each culture, that it's important to really understand, what diversity is and how to really respect it. So I really like this. I love this definition of diversity from the book. And it says, diversity refers to the great variety of human characteristics, ways that we are different, even as we are all human and share more similarities than differences. These differences are an essential part of what enriches humanity. I love that because it talks about the differences and what makes each of us so different and unique. And it's about celebrating those differences, and being able to appreciate those differences. And that's what's just so fantastic about living in a diverse society. So let's look into this here. So let's go into really the first slide in here, which is the mini meanings of diversity. So really, diversity from the reading from this week can be categorized into 3 categories: cultural, biological, and personal. Cultural diversity refers to shared beliefs and behaviors. So I would say most when you hear about diversity, you're going to hear a lot about cultural diversity. But you also hear about biological as well. Biological diversity refers to race, age, gender, and some diversity could be defined as personal in terms of sexual orientation and religion. But I think what we end up seeing a lot is that there's a lot of generalizations and a lot of stereotypes within these different categories, and that's really when people when they're not appreciating diversity and really understanding those differences and celebrating those differences. So we'll jump into that in the next slide, but I first want you to know that within this week's PowerPoint, we're going to really be looking at these 3 categories: the cultural, biological, and personal aspects of diversity, and how our whole conversation will be shaped around these 3 areas. So let's kind of look at some different meanings of diversity. And I know I went against PowerPoint Rules 101. typically when you make a PowerPoint, you don't want a lot of text on the screen. You want it to be small number of text. But I wanted to put a lot of text on here because I want you to be able to download this and view it at any time. So I know I went against the rules a little bit here. But here's a couple of key terms that I want us all to be aware of when it comes to diversity and inclusion. And those are really important things. And like I mentioned, I think a lot of people generalize and they stereotype. And I think whenever people generalize or stereotype and say, I can assume I understand this person. I already know them, or they compare them to someone else or another culture. I think it really comes from a lack of foundation in understanding of the different vocabulary that make up what diversity is. So if we were to look on here are some key terms for us to look at. And while we're going through these, it's important to really think about how each of these also apply to yourself and to the people around you. And it's really, these descriptions are there to help provide context and awareness to these areas. And it's important to be inclusive with our peers and with who we're around. And the only way we can do that is to really really understand what each of these terms really mean. So the first one is race. Whenever you hear the term race, that really has to do with biological differences, where we're born, skin color, facial features. Ethnicity, this has to do with the cultural distinction, such as like an ethnic group shares a common identity. So speaking, behaving, religion, traditions. And then cultural background is very similar to ethnicity in that it refers to shared characteristics like language, beliefs, behaviors. We are all influenced by our culture to some extent. Geography, this refers to the physical location that someone is from, within the United States or from the world. And some of us, like we, talked about earlier, some of us may have been born here in California, Southern California. Some of us might have been born in another state. Some of us might have been born in another country. But that has to do with the physical, geographical location of where we are. And that contributes to diversity. Socioeconomic background. So this is referring to, how someone grows up, where they live, maybe their family financial status, their education, the opportunities that they had growing up. This changes throughout time too. So this isn't just set in stone, but this will shape, a lot of times this will shape our ideas, our values, and our morals will come from here, from our socioeconomic background. Gender roles. Gender roles, in the past, was very, it was not equal. There was no sense of equality with it. It was very much of like expectations. Men had expectations within their role. They were expected to be a certain way, and women were expected to be a certain way. And it really wasn't equal. It was a very, just black and white way of viewing what someone's gender meant. And now you see that women have virtually all professional and social roles, including the roles that were once dominated by men. That, people used to say, oh, no, that is specifically only that job is only meant for a man, or this occupation's only meant for a woman. That's a gender role. And now men have taken on many roles, such as raising a child. That maybe was mostly referred to as something that maybe a woman would do. So that would be considered a gender role. Sexual orientation refers to the pattern of romantic, emotional, or sexual attraction one identifies with. Age, there is also a wide range of different ages within a college campus, and that also contributes to the different experiences and ideas that people bring into a classroom, or just into their lives in general. So age is also a part of diversity. Religion, religion can be a daily, weekly practice, and this religion can shape our beliefs, our ways of thinking and behaving. Physical ability as well. Physical differences among students bring another sense of diversity to a college campus. And regardless of physical limits, all ability levels are welcome in college, and that's what's that also contributes to diversity. Is who we all are. So let's kind of jump into here. So now we got a little, we got an idea of the meanings of diversity, right? The three categories: the cultural diversity, biological diversity, and the personal diversity, and some of those definitions, within diversity. Now it's really important to, how can we show respect? How can we show respect within these cultural differences? Well, the first thing is to pronounce names correctly. Use the preferred term for a person's cultural group. Learn nonverbal behaviors and see people as individuals, not stereotypes. And I think that happens, way too much. Someone learns something about someone, or they assume that they know something about someone, and they generalize, they stereotype someone based on their looks or based on something they shared with them, and they think that they completely understand that person and know who they are, and assumptions and generalizations take place. When in reality, all of us as individuals, we are all unique, and there is so much that shape who we are. Just because, you follow a specific, religion, or just because you came from a specific geographical location, or just because you came from a similar socioeconomic status, does not mean that is exactly who you are. It's a part of maybe what your identity is, but it doesn't mean that is all of who we are, that makes us who we are. So it's important to see people as individuals. Avoid the right-wrong game. Avoid microaggressions, which we're going to be watching this week. There's 2 videos in this week's module that you're going to be watching on microaggressions, things that sometimes we don't know that we're doing. And it's very important to be aware of what a microaggression is. And when you watch these videos, you're going to hear from different students and about their own experiences with microaggressions. And it's a very important set of videos I really want you all to watch. So it's very important to avoid microaggressions, which I want to save for later, because those videos are really, really important, and do a great job of explaining it too. And to advocate for respect, and that's so important, is to respect and to celebrate those differences that each of us have. So, those are some ways that we can respect cultural differences. Now, here's some benefits of diversity on campus. The first thing is, experiencing diversity in college prepares students for the future, because throughout life, you will always experience diversity. And that's what's so great about especially community college, is that you're taking classes with students of all ages, of all cultural backgrounds, of all types of different elements of differences that, that's very, very similar to what you'll be encountering in the real world. So I think that's what's great, is it does prepare you for the future. Also, too, students learn better in a diverse environment. Learning new concepts and values and being able to see from other perspectives usually leads to more complex and creative ways of learning. The students who experience, racial and ethnic diversity in their classes are more engaged in active thinking. You develop more skills, and research shows that when you engage in diverse classroom environments with people of different backgrounds and beliefs, and being able to hear them from their experiences share, and you can gain perspective from their experiences, that is where the learning takes off. Attention to diversity leads to a broader range of teaching methods as well. So when teachers incorporate diverse ways of learning, that also benefits the learning process for all students. And that's at Chaffey College, we all strive to do that, have different ways of learning, and definitely being inclusive and promoting diversity. Experiencing diversity on campus is beneficial for both minority and majority students. Diversity experiences break the patterns of segregation and prejudice that have characterized American history. Unfortunately, in American history, there's been a lot of discrimination and a lot of, prejudices and racism. And, the discrimination, it comes by race, gender, age, sexual orientation. It's usually rooted in a fear of people who are different. But once you can get to know people who are different, that's the first step in appreciating and accepting those differences. And really, we can get to a point in society where we can appreciate those differences and understand each other's different perspectives. That's when we are making some positive steps, towards the future. Makes us all better citizens in our democracy. That's another benefit of diversity on campus as well. When we have a better idea of the perspective of others, now we're better equipped to participate in our society. Instead of kind of having like an us versus them, type of mindset. Instead participating and being able to get involved in, government and voting, of course, too, is important, but it does show, and studies show that college graduates with good experiences of diversity generally maintain patterns of openness and inclusivity in their future lives. So it does allow for you to be open and to actually listen in to somebody else and not be so, narrow-minded and just focused on your own experiences and your own beliefs. When we can appreciate diversity, that's when we can start to open up. And that's when we can really grow as a learner, as well as when we can really appreciate diversity. It also enhances self-awareness of our own selves and our own thoughts and our own processes. When we learn and from other backgrounds and are open to, learning about other people's values and their own experiences, it almost challenges us. And it makes us reflect and look upon our own lives. And so it does enhance our own self-awareness about ourselves. And sometimes that can be really healing, and it can allow for us to grow and become, better versions of ourselves. So, as we learn about this, the different, what diversity is and the different definitions and kind of having a better understanding of the importance of diversity, it's important for us to realize that each of us have our own identity of what makes us who we are, and how we see ourselves. That refers to identity. And that's what is great about diversity, is we all have our own identities. And it's important for us to first understand our own identity, and then to appreciate other people's identity and to celebrate that, as well. So, and that's a question that we're going to be talking about in this week's discussion, but I want you to think about that. How would you describe your identity? Do you identify strongly with your gender, with your age, with your own personal ethnicity, employment, cultural backgrounds, religion? What makes you, you? And that's something that's important to know, is that, identities can change over time too. Of course, we all, we age, we get older. Sometimes employment, of course, changes. Our socioeconomic status changes. Maybe our family situation changes, and that can impact portions of our identity. And I know that was one of the things for me as I've continued to just, each year, it changes for me too. For me, I have a lot of things that I identify with that makes me who I am. For me, I am a husband. I am a counselor. I am a son. I am a brother. I am, I have my hobbies and my interests that I identify with, that I feel really strongly about. I have goals and philosophical beliefs and there's so many things that make me who I am and that I consider part of my identity. But identity is not always set in stone. It changes. It's fluid. It will always change. And it's important to know too that we all are different on how we view and what we identify with. So, there's some people that maybe strongly identify with their job or with their age or with their cultural background or socioeconomic status, while other people might be embarrassed or they maybe wish they could change certain aspects. So it's important to know that, it's not just, oh, these are things that you're categorized by. It's also important to know, what do you feel proud about and what do you feel that you identify the most with as well. So, I want you guys to think about that this week. I want you to think about your identity and all those parts of you that that make you who you are. And really, by taking this view of identity as a social process that people engage in rather than a fixed essence, something that's just, it is there, it's always been in there, is not to deny that particular identities are extremely important for certain groups and individuals. So it's important to first know how you identify with yourself, and then you can also begin to appreciate how other people identify with themselves. And that's when we get into the good stuff. That's when we can really appreciate those differences. And I know I kept saying this over and over again, but it's being able to celebrate diversity. And that's so important, is to recognize that each of us are different. And being able to appreciate those differences, being able to, respect those feelings and behaviors and experiences from different people. And I want to read this. This was taken from, part of our reading this week. And I thought it was such a great definition on celebrating diversity. So I'm going to read it to you. And it says, more than anything, multiculturalism is an attitude. Multiculturalism involves accepting and respecting the ideas, feelings, behaviors, and experiences of people different from oneself. All the forms of diversity described earlier. We do not actually live in a, quote, melting pot society, in the sense that people from diverse backgrounds somehow all become the same. Society has always included a great diversity of ideas, attitudes, and behaviors. We are all different, and it's important to celebrate those differences. And that's what is just so beautiful, is those differences. So, this week I want to, challenge you to think about your own identity, and to also, think about, your understanding and maybe questions you have when it comes to diversity. And if you do have questions, I think you're going to find some answers in this week's reading. There's some really good text in there, so make sure you do the reading. Watch the video on microaggressions. And I think these are really important key concepts to really look into, within ourselves as we continue to grow as effective students and effective learners. As we've done through this whole class, we've talked about mindset. We've talked about understanding the college culture. We've talked about setting goals. We've talked about time management skills and study skills. And we've talked about so much in this class. But this is also another really important aspect of how we can become lifelong learners and effective students, and how we can grow as human beings. And that's being able to appreciate cultural diversity and to be able to, understand what we identify with and to celebrate those differences that each of us have, and how we can continue to learn from each other and how we can just continue to have that respect. And I think that's just what's so great about, being a college student, is that you get to learn about all of these aspects, and you get to be in a myriad of classroom and different environments. And there's always opportunities for us to grow. You just got to look for it. So I just want to encourage you all again to, just keep working hard. I know, we're a little bit past the halfway point of this class. We've done a lot of our core assignments already. If you've noticed, if you've been looking at the syllabus, we don't have a lot of big assignments coming up in these next few weeks. So I know a lot of you are, you got a lot going on, but I want to encourage you to keep pushing forward. You still have a chance to get a great grade in this course. Some of you are just doing fantastic. You are just, at such a high, just turning in all your assignments and great feedback. And a lot of us here are right there too. We're right on the brink of getting to that really high grade that I know you're searching for to get. And I just want you to know, if you're in that range, if you're thinking, I'm not at the grade I want to be at right now, there's still plenty of opportunities, and I'll be making some announcements within the next week or two on how to improve your grades to get to that grade I know that we all want, that A grade. It's achievable. It's there. Just got to work with me here and talk with me if you have questions. And, just keep participating. Keep logging in at least 2 to 3 days a week. It's so important to do that. So, and I'm here for office hours. So anytime you have questions, let me know. But as always, you are all appreciated and valued. And I hope you are doing well. And again, you have support around you. So take care. Have a great rest of your week. And I will talk to you soon. Take care.